NTA International News.
President Buhari says no going back in sustaining Nigeria's polio-free status. Federal government in an intervention program to feed over 750 malnourished people in Borno State. Finance ministers of G20 nations approve recommendations to monitor structural reforms to economic challenges. Hello, welcome to NTA International News. I'm Nancy Godi-Angonihu. The G20 finance ministers meeting in Hangzhou, China has approved recommendations for a system to monitor and evaluate the efforts and progress of G20 members in structural reforms and responses to economic challenges. Hosted by China's finance minister Lu Jiwei, the two-day meeting drew up a comprehensive communique to guide the G20 leaders on the agenda for the forthcoming G20 summit in September this year. Julieta Aino reports.
As the last meeting before the September G20 summit in Hangzhou, G20 finance ministers and central bank governors had some hot economic issues on their table in the city of Chengdu. They looked at risks and challenges before the global economy and proposed a new direction for structural reforms, for the promotion of global trade and new formulas for world economic growth. At a meeting dedicated to debating tax policies, host of the meeting, China's finance minister Lu Jiwei called on G20 countries to explore a more equal and rational tax regime to help promote international coordination and cooperation on taxation.
Reconciling tax policies that favor innovation and growth with tax policies that favor inclusion and equity. That's been the tension that we face in our tax policies and indeed in our fiscal policies more generally.
It was agreed that though taxing new and emerging industries can be difficult, tax policies must be conducive to encourage and facilitate economic growth.
If we don't have the data, if we don't have the information, we just won't understand each other. And understanding the main principle and the main problem of our economies or our business, this is what will bring us together.
Entrepreneurs and policymakers from some world financial institutions made contributions at the two-day G20 finance ministers meeting. In the communique released at the end, the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors agreed that as the global economic recovery continues, benefits of growth needs to be shared more broadly within and among countries to promote inclusiveness. The 16-point communique called for policies to generate investments, particularly from foreign capitals. From Beijing, China, Julieta Aino, NTA News.
And still talking about China, the UN-backed International Tribunal supported a case brought by the Philippines this month, rejecting Chinese claims to rights in the South China Sea. At a meeting in Laos, foreign ministers from 10 states, the ASEAN group, were unable to reach a joint statement. Diplomats say Chinese ally Cambodia blocked any reference to the ruling. ASEAN ministers were meeting for the first time since the ruling on 12th July by the Permanent Court of Arbitration, which found there was no evidence that China had historically exercised exclusive control over the water or resources. China, which claims almost all the South China Sea, including reefs and islands, also claimed by others, called the ruling ill-founded and said it would not be bound by it. ASEAN is made up of Indonesia, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Thailand, Brunei, Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar, and Vietnam. Back here in Nigeria, over 750,000 children and adults suffering severe acute malnutrition in Borno State are to benefit from a food, nutrition and health intervention of the federal government. This came to light at the end of an emergency meeting of experts from the federal and Borno State Ministries of Health, as well as intervention partners. Lamiali has details.
Following reports on the health and humanitarian crisis in Borno State as a result of intensified military operations, that led to liberation and rescue in communities hitherto controlled by insurgents. An emergency roundtable put together a technical team to assess the situation. Findings just released by the team disclosed that if the issue is not urgently addressed, at least 5 children will die every hour in areas affected already. A rapid response team headed by Dr. Joshua Basanyo had been deployed to Borno to commence emergency response activities in collaboration with the State Ministry of Health. The National Coordinator of the Nigeria Center for Disease Control, Professor Abdul Salam Nasidi, and Borno State Commissioner for Health, Dr. Haruna Mishelia, said both the federal and state government have come up with an effective approach based on one emergency, one plan, and one response to better address the health and nutrition crisis.
Our assessment on ground is the fact that the situation is much more dire than is being reported.
The group shall be reporting to the chairman of the Central Coordinated Response, who is no other person but the Secretary of the State Government in the state, and to the Minister of Health, etc.
The emergency response plan will cost about $390 million, covering areas which include immunization, reproductive health care, psychosocial and mental care, water supply and sanitation.
President Muhammadu Buhari says his administration is committed towards Nigeria being certified polio-free in 2017. This, he says, will be realized by continuing to support routine immunization and the revitalization of the primary healthcare system while cooperating with international public and private partners. The president's commitments, which were made to mark the 2nd anniversary of Nigeria not recording any new polio case, said he will continue to ensure timely release of funds for the polio eradication program as the important part of his administration's drive to national development. This commitment, he said, has been demonstrated with the allocation of 12.6 billion naira in the 2016 budget for vaccines for polio, measles, yellow fever, and others. While applauding the immense support given by religious and traditional rulers and leaders through the years, President Buhari thanks the country's development partners, particularly WHO, UNICEF, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Aliko Dangote Foundation, USAID, U.S. Center for Disease Control, Rotary International, and others who contributed financially and materially to the effort to rid Nigeria of polio. Still talking health, Minister of State for Health, Dr. Osage Ehanire, has called for increased productivity in the health sector as panacea for development in the country. The minister was speaking when he inspected facilities at the Federal Medical Center, Bida, in Niger State. Mohammed Doma reports.
The Minister of State for Health, Dr. Osage Ehanire, who visited the center for the first time since assumption of duty on arrival, went into closed-door meeting with the hospital management. Dr. Osage was later taken around some departments at the center by the medical director, Dr. Mohammed Amin Usman, to see things for himself. Departments visited include antenatal clinic and ward, neonatal and intensive care units, main theater, oxygen plant, dialysis and intensive care units, as well as some wards where he interacted with some of the patients on admission. Addressing 190 medical doctors comprising 42 consultants, 100 resident doctors, 48 house and medical officers, 314 nurses and other health professionals, Dr. Osage called for increased productivity on their part, adding that the situation the nation finds herself now requires creativity from every Nigerian.
Medical staff here are doing their best. The facilities here are sufficient, but there is room for improvement.
The minister also reacted to a recent posting on the social media which portrayed the center in bad light.
It is wrong, it false. I verify that it's not correct. Doing much better than what the last social media scandal had portrayed.
The minister later had an interactive session with the staff union leaders and representative of the host community. Medical director of the center, Dr. Mohammed Amin Usman, said the hospital has outreach centers in Gauba, Bangida and Zingeru to ensure that its presence is felt in all the 3 senatorial zones of the state. In Bidda, Mohammed Doma, NTA News.
Let's take a trip to London, where Minister of Information Lai Mohammed has described the BBC as a credible source of information that has continued to objectively report happenings in the world. The minister was speaking while taking tour of facilities at the BBC London. Anthony Forsen reports.
The British Broadcasting Corporation in London is one of the foremost broadcasting outfits in the world. It has remained a credible source for news over the years. With its over 40 English and vernacular channels, Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed says there is no better broadcasting organization like the BBC to partner with Radio Nigeria.
They have models that we can use that can improve our operations in FRCN. One thing which is quite unique and which we take away from BBC is the fact that despite being a public broadcaster, have been able to a large extent to discharge their function without any political bias. They are always mindful of the fact that they are sustained by taxpayers' money, so they run, a very inclusive organization. But beyond that, you can see that BBC today is represented in virtually every country of the world. They have programs that appeal to different strata of society.
As part of the positive things to come, the minister held a series of meetings with critical officials in the various departments of the organization who briefed him on what has made BBC what it represents today. Lai Mohammed, apart from the discussions, inspected facilities at the BBC headquarters, where he was hosted by BBC's Focus on Africa anchor, Peter Okochi.
For instance, when we came in on May 29, 2015, 14 out of 20 local governments in Borno State was under the sovereign authority of Boko Haram. Today, not one single local government is under their control. And all this we achieved under 1 year.
The minister was accompanied on the visit by the Director General, Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria, Mansour Liman. In London, Anthony Forsen, NTA News.
In other news, the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, has described the stage musical extravaganza, Waka the Musical, as one of the best in both depth and storyline. The minister made the observation after watching the London edition of the show at the Shaw Theatre, West End. In a statement this Sunday in London, the minister ranked the production high and urged investors to support the Nigerian creative industry in order to boost the sector. Anthony Forsen again reports.
Coming from the stable of what is described as Nigeria's most entertaining Broadway-styled theater outfit, Waka is coming in response to growing interest in productions of African origin across the world. With a large Nigerian and Afro-Caribbean population in London yearning to see world-class productions from Nigeria, Waka came handy.
I mean, you can't afford to throw away seven good years of study and a bright future of being a medical doctor. You know what? I'm headed off to New York. New York? New York. As in New York, New York.
Waka, a musical play about trials, successes and experiences of graduates with varied backgrounds. The follies of their choices hit them, and coming full circle, they eventually reunite, revealing the struggles and challenges young people face in present-day Nigeria and abroad.
See, we've only just begun. We'll shine brighter than the sun. So let you go, hey, and if I catch you now forever, hey, emergency, emergency, you never see me coming through.
Waka also take the spectators into an emotional roller coaster of a satire about Nigeria's politics.
I comprehensively assure you that he be telling the truth. Too much truth, Papa, and our enemy be speaking and saying we don't get support. Is you not support?
We support.
Hey, wakere.
My international exposure. And so I am the best candidate. Excuse me. What's the mark with you?
Yes. I'm proud of Nigeria. I'm proud of the producer. I'm proud of the cast. This production would rate high anywhere in the world.
Waka explores the scheming, intrigues, betrayals, and games people play in life. In London, Anthony Forson, NTA News.
Indeed, Nigeria has a bundle of talents. You can agree with the minister. You're watching the news on NTA International, reaching you from Abuja, Nigeria's capital. There will be more reports after the break. Don't go away.
Information is power. Everyone wants power. So feel powerful with the NTA News mobile app, the one-stop information center. Real news at your fingertip. Be the first to report by uploading first-hand information on the U-Report link. And be the first to know by simply clicking on any of the links on the sidebar for headlines, domestic and foreign news, economy, security, politics, sports, and more. Stream live on your smartphone and tablets and stay connected. It's pretty easy. Simply download NTA News app from your Google Play Store and you're good to go. NTA News mobile app, your access to real-time information.
Exotic land of rainbow, a giant in the sun, rich in human and natural resources, a land of cultural diversity for tourists' appreciation. Nigeria occupies 923,766 square kilometers, accommodating over 250 indigenous languages. So these are wonderful environments for leisure and business.
Thank you for being there. Now on the political scene, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has won the Kogi East senatorial rerun election held Saturday. The party's candidate, Isaac Alpha, a former Air Force Marshal, was declared winner with 56,575 votes, beating 6 other candidates. The PDP candidate beat Ibrahim Itodo of Labour Party, who got 11,908 votes, Abo Samuel of APCN, 1,793 votes, Bala Opanachi of Kowa, 888 votes, Emenako Arome of MPPP, 498 votes, and Victor Akubo of UPP, who got 349 votes. The Acting Inspector General of Police, Ibrahim Idris, says the police has now developed strategy and a template that will guarantee free, fair, and violence-free election in the country. This is contained in a statement by the Police Public Relations Officer and Deputy Commissioner of Police, Don Awuno. The state commended the police for ensuring violence-free rerun elections in Kogi and Imo states, saying they have become templates for Edo, Ondo, and other future elections. The acting IGP, while assuring the public of police resolve to conduct elections within the framework of international acceptable standards of security, urged politicians and those engaged in electoral processes to play by the rules of the game. On to business reports, we have Liakatu Babatunde reporting.
The 2016 annual meetings of the Association of the African Central Banks, AACB, have been scheduled to hold in Abuja, the nation's capital, from 15 to 19 August 2016. The meeting of the Assembly of Governors will be preceded by a technical meeting and bureau meetings from August 15 to 16, as well as symposium on August 18. The concept for the formation of an Association of African Central Banks was first introduced on May 25, 1963 at the Summit Conference of African Heads of States and Government held in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia. In this regard, African heads of state and government unanimously agreed to set up a preparatory economic committee to study a large range of monetary and financial issues in collaboration with governments and in consultation with the Economic Commission for Africa (ECA). The key objectives of the AACB are to promote cooperation in the monetary, banking and financial spheres in the African region, assist in the formulation of guidelines along which agreements among African countries in the monetary, banking and financial fields shall be reached, help in strengthening all efforts aimed at bringing about and maintaining price stability and financial stability in the African region, examine the effectiveness of international economic and financial institutions in which African countries have an interest and suggest ways of possible improvement. The latest monthly economic report from the CBN puts non-oil exports provisionally at $364 million in April, indicating a decrease of 27% from the preceding month. The fall in receipts was seen across all components other than minerals. The largest proceeds came from manufactured products, which earned $204 million. The Nigerian Export Promotion Council recently disclosed that half of its registered exporters are inactive. The breakdown by sector in April shows that proceeds from manufactured, agricultural and mineral products accounted for 56%, 71% and 25% of total receipts. Export earning from agriculture in April stood at $26 million, less than 10% of total earnings. With Business News, I'm Leah Katumbaba today.
And Fatima Aliyu has stories trending across the globe.
Zimbabwe war veterans who fought in the 1972-1979 War of Independence at a meeting have propped up against Mugabe's government, insisting that Mugabe must go. Analysts say by withdrawing support for Mugabe's 92, the war veterans have dealt a serious blow to the embattled dictator, stressing that this could be Zimbabwe's political decisive moment and a turning point of epoch-making proportion. Report says the country has in recent weeks been hit by protests, including a mass strike which shut business in the country. However, authorities in Zimbabwe have denounced the veteran statement as a treasonable and treacherous and said they were investigating its ongoing. Their statement came in the wake of a surge of public anger against Mugabe triggered by an economic crisis that has left banks short of cash and the government struggling to pay its workers. And from UK comes a report that prosecutors will be given fresh guidelines to push for tougher sentences for people committing hate crimes, racial and religiously aggravated offenses following a rise in the incidents after the EU referendum. Also, a total of $2.4 million fund will also be instituted for security measures at places of worship. The action plan, Home Office said, is aimed at encouraging people to report offenses and boost support for victims. Fatima Aliyu, NTA News.
On the sports scene, Russia will not receive a blanket ban from Rio 2016 following the country's doping scandal. Reports indicate that the International Olympic Committee will leave it up to individual sports governing bodies to decide if Russian competitors are clean and should be allowed to take part. The decision follows a report in which Canadian law professor Richard McLaren said Russia operated a state-sponsored doping program from 2011 to 2015. However, competitors from Russia who want to take part in the games, which start 5th of August, will have to meet strict criteria laid down by the International Olympic Committee, IOC. The report further warned that any Russian athletes who has served a doping ban will not be eligible for the next month's Olympic. Next is Monday's weather prospects. The weather forecast brings the news to an end. Thank you for watching.